Thank you. So the only person we are missing is Vanessa. It'd be coming on. And
Maria's
Sam.
here.
Okay.
It sounds like there's
Sam
a
is
cat
out of office
involved.
today.
What, Andrew?
I think someone mentioned James's cat for one, and then I was saying that that Sam is out of office today, so she will not be able to join us.
Okay.
That
So,
was me. Sorry, creatures.
so as we start this meeting, please tell your name and where you're from, and that just to your opinion and so on and so forth. Please be respectful to others as we're on the recording with this meeting. I will go first. My name is George Adams. I am in Medford, South Oregon, and the chair of this committee. And I will start with the favorite place to go or where or what to teleport to in the spring. And I would like to go to Paris, France and Hawaii.
Oh, that's nice.
So who would like to go next?
I'll go next.
Go ahead.
My name is April Paul. I'm a special projects manager for Neighbor Impact Child Care Resources, where I primarily manage the Baby Promise program. My favorite place to go is Subtle Lake here in Central Oregon. And to be spring, I would probably say Palm Springs next to a tail. Always.
Hey, April, go ahead and pick somebody.
Popcorn, Gabrielle.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Gadon. I'm the one that loves the little kid, as I was showing off my dogs earlier. And to be honest, I would go to France because my family's actually came across the ocean into Canada, and we still have the blanket. And we were actually took care of a family in their house. So we were the ones that lived in the attics, little rooms in the attics.
Oh, cool.
So
Gabrielle,
Thank you.
you want to
Yeah.
introduce yourself a little more too, since we're doing this longer form icebreaker?
Yeah, I'm Gabrielle Gadon. I run the Oregon Self-Advocacy Coalition, and we are made up of self-advocacy groups that have people with intellectual and developmental disability throughout the state. We're fairly unique because we're ran by people, and I actually experiences intellectual and developmental disability and receive services. So we are a very, very tight-knit group, and also it's a full nonprofit. For the most part, we do take care of ourselves, and our community partners back us up and advise us and things like that. So I'm excited to be here. The first time of hearing about it was when this website was when James contacted me to add some, I can't remember exactly what you specifically asked, but I have a memory condition. It's part, so apologize. I always have to refer back to writing. But yeah, got to know it, and I was like, hey, this sounds like a good opportunity. And I was like, could I join? Because we all use supports and services, including what this provides us. And I'd never heard about it, so got excited and wanted to be part of the impact, and also to make sure I can learn more so I can actually talk to other people that receive services and have disabilities. Also, I've been talking to some community partners, and we're trying to get James to our Inclusive Leadership Summit conference as well as the ARCA conference, because I haven't heard about it and I'm the ED. We should probably get him to come in and tell more people, because we need to be able to get it out there. So yes, so I hope that was not too much.
Hey, Judith, you have your hand
Yes,
up?
first of all, I want to say, welcome aboard. And in that same vein, is there any we say asking this, but I don't have any email addresses. James and Andrew and George. So I would love to have email address the folks on here so that we can talk during the week about our issues and et cetera and so on. And I'm focusing on Gabrielle because she has my interest. And this is Judy Richards. And I might as well just go ahead and take advantage of the time. And I am in Salem, Oregon, and I am also a small lover of all kinds. I have dogs, I have deer, I have in my yard, and I love to feed them. And I have crows, and they know me. And I have bluebirds, I have critters, and I love it. And I am a avid focused on disabilities for seniors and for adults and for children of all age. That's it, everybody.
I think that on the invite you if you go to your invite, you actually there is a way to contact all the people on here with consent. So if you
Okay,
the invite should have, that's how I joined it, but it was on there.
great. Thank you,
Including
Gabrielle. I will go there and pull off the addresses I need. Thank you.
Judith, what is your favorite place?
Oh my gosh. I've done a lot of traveling, but not to some places in Europe that I would love to go to, but because of my age and because of my puppies, I don't feel like I can leave. So I'm going to say I will go and an ocean breeze. Raised in San Diego, I lived in La Jolla. I I have been all over the United States, and I really am happy where I am. I love my favorite is my garden. And, occasionally I like to smell the sea air. And so a weekend away is always nice.
Hey, what other do you like to pick?
I'll pick Sydney. Sydney brochures.
Hello. Yeah, Sydney Borchers. I'm live in Bend. I work for Neighbor Impact on the Baby Promise team with April. Originally from Michigan, and while it is one of my favorite, love to be teleported to Sweden, where my sister lives. So that would probably be where I'd like to be at the moment. But I can popcorn it off to.
Hi guys, my name is Vanessa Broadley. I'm the community navigator for South Coast Regional Early Learning Hub, Baby Promise, Preschool Promise, Coordinated Enrollment, a few other programs that we have out here. And I currently live in Apollo Beach, Florida. I get to work remotely. Found out I'm moving to Philadelphia in the summer, so go birds. And if I could go anywhere, to be honest, lived all over, and the spring here, the beaches here are like phenomenal, clear waters. And this weekend, and there were manatees everywhere. So being able to swim with a bunch of the manatees around you, it doesn't feel real. So yeah, I love that here. And then in the summer, it's just too hot. So spring is like perfect time.
Where would you like to go next?
Let's go, Maria.
Amazing. Hello, good morning. Maria Park, Senior Program Manager from Asian Health and Service Center. And I think I would like to teleport to like a tulip farm during the spring. And I'm going to pass it to.
Hey, everybody. I'm Andrew Demaray. I'm the ONE business analyst as part of the ONE team. My focus has been on applicant portal or the online portal, excuse me. And in terms of where I'd want to transport, I really love baseball. I've been to spring training in Florida. I've never been to the spring training in Arizona, but I'd go back to Florida too. So I guess just baseball spring training would be fun.
Would you like to go next, Andrew?
Oh, sorry. How about Veronica?
Good morning. My name is Veronica Kritsky, and I am a new ONE-BA focusing on the Oregon One mobile app. My favorite place to go would probably be the Virgin Islands, the US side of the Virgin Islands, St. John Island
So
specifically.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Would you like to go next, Veronica?
Let's see who's left. Adriana, did you go?
No, I'd be happy to go next. Let's see. So Adriana Marlin, stepping in for Angel, and I'm in the central coordination team within OEP. And for the icebreaker, let's see. So I'm also going to say Hawaii, and I'm really grateful that I get to get married in Hawaii next summer. So I'm not going to say spring, I'm going to say summer. And I just want to teleport there so I don't have to think about all the planning. And I just wanted to be the day next summer and just be sitting on the sand and enjoying that breeze.
We get pictures.
Thank you. I know. Take lots of pictures. There's just so many. Oh my gosh, it's kind of ridiculous. And I just started this job too, so I'm gonna think about it later. I will choose.
Thank you. And yes, congratulations. Azucena Moreno, pronoun she, her, ella. I am the OEP Equity and Engagement Strategy Manager for Oregon Eligibility Partnership. Favorite place to go, I guess. Probably Italy, specifically Florence. They just have so much art and buildings that I love there. I would love to just hang out there as long as I possibly could. And I will pass it to, let's see, Vixen. I don't believe I've heard you go
I haven't
yet.
gone. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna know who's still to go. I am Vixen Radford Wex. I work for Northeast Oregon Network. I am a community health worker and outreach and enrollment specialist. And favorite place to go if I could teleport. Well, I have been gone for the last month. I worked a little bit remote, but I drove from Oregon to Texas so I could watch my daughter do Rodeo Houston. And then we drove home. My husband flew down, met me, and then him and I drove home and we went up. And so we basically went from the Gulf of America or the Gulf of Mexico, and we went clear almost to the Canadian border in Montana. And I got to see things that I always thought I would never see. But honestly, I just want to go to my cabin and relax now. So
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to spring. We have a cabin out in the woods and it's off grid and I really enjoy it. So after being gone for the last month and being around lots of people, I am ready to just enjoy not being around people.
Did you
I don't,
did you hear that, everybody? She has a cabin. All
I
right.
do.
That's so cool.
You could always come. I just say, unless you like to read and stare at nature, you might be bored because that, I mean, literally, and it has an outhouse. So it's
I love it.
seriously off grid. So
Are you offering it for a treat?
Yeah,
yeah,
would you be
just
upset if we all show up?
actually I wouldn't because this is really sad. We built it and so it has like a bedroom that we have, but then we have like bunk beds and it has a loft with a bunch of beds and nobody has come and stayed with us. since we
Uh-oh,
built it.
you're in trouble now, Vixen.
We invite people and they're like, oh no, we're too busy. And I'm like, but, and like one time I took out all this meals and I was like, because I thought people were going to come out for New Year's with us and nobody came. So
That is so heartbreaking. I'm so sorry.
it's okay. I get that not everybody likes being not around people. I enjoy it. I can just sit and stare. The sunsets are magnificent. So
That's not right. We
All right.
will all come and eat it for them.
okay.
All right, Gabrielle, let's get all
Yeah,
our
yeah.
animals and meet
We have a
Vixen
little
out in the
pack in the
cabin.
back.
Hey, I'm okay with animals because when I was gone for my last month, the biggest thing I was excited to see when I got home, and you can ask my kids, was did my cat miss me? Because my cat has 3 legs. He lost his leg last fall and
Oh.
he missed me. And so there's my son. He's putting a file cabinet together for me. But he took care of my animals for me, and we have a lot. So he will tell you it is not the funnest at my house because we have like 20 head of horses, cows, chickens.
Oh, cool. Where do you live, Vixen? I
Okay,
mean, what part of the country?
Oh, I live in Joseph, Oregon. So I
Joseph,
just
Oregon.
live in the Northeast Pacific, like right against you, Idaho and Washington.
Ah.
Bless you.
If you've ever heard of Wallowa Lake, I lived like 4 miles from Wallowa Lake. So
Oh my gosh, Vixen, I hiked that trail and I went in the water of Mirror Lake. Is that correct?
yes,
It was freezing, but I took a picture and I was in and then I was out super quick.
good for you. That is a hike. So Mirror
Yes.
Lake is about 10 miles and it's a very steep hike. So good for you.
Thank you.
But
Lots of breaks, but I finished it. It's beautiful out there.
Okay, so, who would you like to be next?
I don't know who's left.
There's Brandy, James, there's Paul.
Let's do Brandy.
Okay,
Here I am. Hi, everyone. I'm Brandy Strom, and I'm a case manager with Maslow Project here in the Grants Pass area and a team lead. And favorite place to go, honestly, just anywhere tropical. Just take me there. That is where I would think I would be most happy. Yeah. And then who is the next person that he listed? Because I haven't been keeping track. And that's the person I pick.
James, there's James, Paul, then there's Dion and April.
Oh, well, I guess my name was first, so I'll go ahead and go. Um, yeah, James Barta, he, him. I'm the engagement strategies coordinator for Oregon Eligibility Partnership. We manage the ONE system. So thank you all for being here to help the ONE system be better. And I'll say that, so I've been with the state for 5 years. It's been great. And I'm thinking I'd like to go back. If I'm going to teleport somewhere, I'll go backcountry, national park, but in the spring, don't want anything too far north. So maybe down in Yosemite or something like that. I figure now's a good time to go before the lack of staffing makes all the toilets fall plugged up or something like that. So, but yeah, it's hard to beat being in the backcountry as long as I have stuff with me, my camping equipment. And NJ, why don't you go next?
Hi, my name is Inje, Asian Health and Service Center Community Program Coordinator. I mostly work with the Korean-speaking community members. My favorite place to go would be waterfalls. Of course. Thank you. Let's see.
There's Paul.
Dion.
Okay, Dion.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Dion Destin, he, him. I'm executive support to Jillian Johnson, who is our committee sponsor. I support OOIC as my role here. Andrew, I'm with you. I'm ready for some baseball. I've got my San Francisco Giants flag up, dusted off for the season. But where would I want to teleport to in the spring? Anywhere next to the coast, preferably tropical and preferably all inclusive. Would be my way to go. And I think Paul, I don't think you've gone yet, have you?
No, I sure haven't.
All right.
So I'm Paul Alderson. I'm a PSR 4 with the applicant portal technical team. I've been with the state almost coming up on my 1 year. And where would I teleport to? Thanks, James. PSR4, Public Service Representative. I'm a lead worker with the technical side of what we do. Where would I teleport to? I've always wanted to go to Fiji for whatever reason. I just want to teleport there. I think the weather would be fantastic and just right up my alley of what I'd like to do. And I think I'm the last one. So I guess, James, you can take over.
There's Susan and April next.
Oh, Susan.
I think April's gone, but I think I haven't. Susan Garcia with the Community Health Centers of Lane County. And I would also like to go somewhere tropical, all exclusive, but not with a lot of people. So just me. That's it.
Hey, April.
I went right after you, George.
Oh, okay. Veronica, did you go?
I think that's everyone.
Okay, so guys, we have a very long agenda, so we try to get as much as we can on the agenda. Now, with your opinions and stuff, staff would like to know your opinions, so on and so forth. So James, it's now in your hands.
Great. Well, I was thinking we'd do a shorter intro and then do introductions. That was, I have to say, I really enjoyed that. We should be doing these longer ones every once in a while. And so it is a good time to do it, given that we have a new member with us, Gabrielle, who has introduced herself nicely, and a couple new staff. Yeah.
My last name spelled wrong. It's E, not I.
Oh my goodness. That's embarrassing. Yeah. Thank you.
We all have it, like, it's like me. I sent out a invite and accidentally it bounced back for today, not on the 21st. So I totally get the accidents.
Oh boy. So anyway, thank you for correcting that. And you met Adriana last month, and Veronica as our part of the team with Samantha and Andrew. So we're really excited for that. I really, I worry about staff taking over this meeting. We don't want to have a ton of state staff because it is your meeting, but it's good to have all the support to work with you all. So, and now, speaking of staff supporting us, this is where I kick it over to Andrew.
Yep, so we'll go over just a recap of where we're at with some of our recently approved OOIC approved items. So request 35, and I think the next couple actually. So 35C, D, E are part of the scheduling appointment and canceling appointment ability in the online portal. So 35C requiring a note or reason for canceling appointments, and 35D sending confirmation for canceling or rescheduling appointments were deployed or will be deployed this week with the March 12th build. And then 35E, the adding these functionalities to the mobile app, it was determined to be too large for a work item, but we're moving it to an existing change request. This should sound familiar. Change request 800363, self-scheduled and applicant portal, because that is a change request that was originally pitched by OOIC. So it was one of the ones a few months ago that we decided we wanted to move forward, and that is currently scheduled for March 2026. So a year from now, which is earlier on the timeline than I think any of us had initially anticipated. So really good news there. So yeah, the bad news is 35E is not going in, but the good news is it will be incorporated in the larger self-scheduling expansion in applicant portal in about 1 year.
Andrew, this is George.
Yeah.
that going to hurt? Back up. Is 35E going to hurt this system having to wait that long for March 2026?
When's it's going to hurt anything, because this is already, it doesn't exist in the mobile app. This functionality does exist in the web portal. So there is a way to access this functionality. We're not removing anything or delaying anything that was confirmed to be implemented. When we initially talked about this change, there was always the possibility that it was too large to fit within a work item and that it would be moved to a change request. What I will say is, I think the good thing about this is, because we already had approved this self-schedule change request, being able to include it in that means this will be implemented quicker than if it had to be its own separate change request, right? So I think a few times as we've talked about CRs in this group, we've explained that due to competing interests from different areas and different changes that need to go into the system, there is kind of a long runway of getting these changes into the system. So really looking at getting something this large implemented just a year from now is, I think, a pretty big win.
Okay. And what's the volunteers welcome for?
Were we going to talk about this a little bit later in the agenda, or do we want to talk about it now, James?
Sorry about that. Yeah, let's wait till the end. But it's suffice to say that we're going to be looking for some input from members of this group as well. But like I said, we'll talk about that in more detail later on.
Okay.
Request 39, also part of that previous series of work item requests, is adding the appointment cancellation details to the worker portal. So already they're getting some of the information from the canceled appointments, but they're just getting it in like a brief comment. This is going to expand what the worker sees when that cancellation is coming from the applicant portal side, or the online portal side. The date has been pushed back. It was initially scheduled to go in this week as well, but we had to move some things around, and this will now be going in April 9th, so about a month from now. Also going in this week is...
Whoops, sorry about that. I got anxious.
No worries at all. So also going in this week is the request 50, which is adding the ERDC waitlist status to applicant portal, or the online portal, and the mobile app. And request 59, updating the online portal income screens to only display income details fields after add income is selected. So this, we had previously made the change to the earned income screen, and now we're updating the self-employment, unearned, and specific income screens, which will all be going in the May build. So this is making it a little bit more clear when there's an existing income record, and allowing individuals to review that existing record without any additional fields displayed on the screen, which was causing some confusion.
Vanessa, are you comfortable with that EDRC?
Yep.
Okay.
Request 60, the message center update to display which program a message or correspondence notice is being referred to, it applies to, what program it's referring to. We're adding a column on the message center that will show specifically what program the message is referencing, and that comes in the April 9th build. Request 61, reminder to add self-employment expenses to the tax deduction screen. And I think I talked a little bit about this last time, but just to remember, we had asked with this one if there is any way when someone enters a self-employment expense, if it could be automatically populated on the expenses screen as well. We're not able to exactly auto-populate it like that, but we will be adding some logic to guide an individual to report that information. So when someone reports self-employment expenses, they get to the expense gatepost screen. The question that they need to select to enter those tax deductions and those self-employment expenses will be already selected for them, to make sure that when they continue to the next screen, they're able to report those tax deduction expenses. Request 62, fix the program name from research assistance for rural environments to resource assistance for rural environments. That's been logged and will be implemented in the June build. And then from our meeting last time, request 72, adding comment or open text field to the unearned income page for other income taxable and other income non-taxable. As those income types are fairly nondescript, this comment field will allow individuals or partners to enter some text explaining exactly what that kind of income is. And I think the example we gave last time where this is extra helpful is when reporting things like paid leave Oregon and things like that, where this is the instruction to report it this way, and then we can add that specific information that kind of helps speed up the processing times and any questions that a worker might have once they get that information. So that's been logged and is scheduled for July 9th.
Is there any questions for Andrew, guys?
Again, this committee has been doing a lot of work, so we just have a lot in the pipeline.
There's no questions for Andrew? I have one question, Andrew, with all this going on for people that are filling out the porthole and stuff, are there sort of like a little manual for understanding for people? Like resource and research, what that means, and tax deduction and all that?
So not necessarily, but I think the goal we have when implementing things, especially on the online portal side, is that things will be, if possible, explained either on screen or through help text. I think we try to highlight when we've done some of our demonstrations, we usually have like a little question mark on the screen you can click on and it'll give some additional information. But really any change that we make should hopefully help lead the individual in answering that question the way that we need that information. So with the two examples you gave, the tax deduction question, there are a series of banners that pop up, and that's where this actually came from, was a reminder to add these expenses on a later screen. And so really what we're doing with this one is we're, putting those banners.
Did we lose Andrew?
I think we did.
I think we did.
Good grief.
I think we did too.
Well,
He's back. You're muted, Andrew.
I have no idea what happened. My Zoom disappeared from my computer and then automatically popped back up. So I apologize about that. I was very confused for a second. So what I was saying is the two examples you gave for tax deduction and for resource, specifically the tax deduction one, this came from a question about the existing banners on the screen. The way it is now is we have some banners that say like, hey, a couple screens from now, we want you to remember this information and put it there as well. So with this change, we're really adding something that kind of helps guide them to that screen and report that information correctly. So in that sense, no, there's no guide that we're like giving to illustrate these changes, but with these changes themselves, hopefully it's making reporting this information in the system a bit easier. And then with the research versus resource one, it is just rewording the way a question is worded in there, but I think it was Susan that brought this one up. This inherently is confusing to people because the name of the stipend that they're receiving was incorrect in the system. So having that name corrected should be a little bit more understandable there in itself.
Now,
But yeah.
does it list what type of stipend it is?
Yeah, so that's what this is changing. So like when someone selects, I think it's other income stipends, or so, I can't remember exactly just by looking at this, where they would get to that, but they're choosing stipends. in their income type. And then there's a list of different stipends. This one is listed there, but the title was incorrect. So I think there's some questions is sounds like what I'm getting, but it's not worded the right way. So what this is doing is correcting that wording so that it will be clear to anyone who is receiving that stipend that that's what they should be reporting.
Okay.
All right. Well then, also sort of a recap too. This week, the new questions coming on the applicant portal about sexual orientation and gender identity, along with some more real D, as we call it, race, ethnicity, and language and disability are coming online. We talked a bit about this last month, but just as a reminder, is there any follow-up questions or anything like that? I'll emphasize that these questions, while mandatory for us to ask, are optional for the person applying to respond to.
And so, go ahead, George.
So the thinking is, guys, is that we're leaving it up, or I would like to leave it up to you guys on what you guys think about this. How do you feel with your opinions about this? Because James and I were talking about it.
I think more just if there's any outstanding questions about like what, so last time we had shared a kind of document walkthrough of like what we were expecting the changes to look like. Kind of just a heads up, like, hey, these changes are coming by the end of this week. You should see them live in the system. And if there was any outstanding questions from that discussion that we had last time. And I will add to that, community partners, you should see shared through CPOP, a walkthrough video that I made. And I would say if you haven't seen that and you're interested, reach out to your outreach coordinators or to a contact with CPOP and they can get you connected with that. It's like an 8.5-minute video. I walk through the different layout, like where the screens are located in the portal. And last time we talked about some age-based display logic based on the age of the household members. I walked through how that functions as well. So if you're interested in more of what it actually looks like in the system, that would be a good resource.
And if you're not a CPOP member and you're interested, we can reach out, and Andrew and I could also set you up in a separate meeting for it too. Cool.
Igor says that the video is very helpful. Any questions before we go on? Going. Gone. Okay, Andrew, go ahead.
All right. Well, it's, as so many of the meetings I have nowadays, it's truly the Andrew show. So I, again, really appreciate it, but we don't have a lot in terms of new requests that have come through our suggestion form. And in fact, the 64, the first one is an older one that we have to go back to. You can, I guess I could bring up the briefing sheet that has some information, but once again, Andrew has the good stuff.
Yeah, so neither of these are new requests that we're going to be voting on necessarily today, just things that I'm working on. I wanted to give kind of a heads up of where we're at with these. So I think a meeting or two ago, we had talked about request 64. There's a process called asset verification for certain medical programs, and those require at least a consent to run that asset verification process. So this initial ask on this was if we could move that to the online portal screens. Currently, it generates a pen when that's not completed. It can be completed via paper through the application, the paper application with a signature, or it can be completed over the phone with a verbal signature. So when I talked to non-Magi policy about implementing this in the online portal, there wasn't any policy reason that they disagreed with or that it would cause any issues with adding it there. But the concern that they brought up is this process isn't required for everybody. It's only required for people who are potentially eligible for certain medical programs. So just adding it, blanket to the online portal in the current flow, it would mean we're asking a lot of people to answer this and to consent to this who may not ever actually have to do this. So that's we're looking at that as like, how many people is this helping versus how many people is this really adding an additional step that they don't even really need to complete. So in that sense, we're not moving forward with this, putting it just in the normal applicant portal flow. But what I am going to continue looking into is if there's some way that we can allow for completion of this consent in the online portal if there is an RFI generated for this specifically. So trying to look at who has had this requirement and who has generated an RFI for this and then making it available there. And really the issue is we don't know who is going to have to complete this form until eligibility is run. And for the specific medical programs that require this, eligibility wouldn't be run on it until a worker has processed that application. So that's where we're at with this one. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts on the current process of this?
I still feel the same way as I did before, very strongly about what I had suggested this. Just for the reasons of protecting everybody when they go out to fill out the forms. I feel very, very strongly about this.
Yeah, and George, that was that. Looking at the form example that we have here, it's showing the person's full name and their full date of birth, and your concern is that that provides a lot of personal information. And is there any way that we could limit the personal information that we're showing on this form in case somebody who this wasn't addressed to, who this didn't apply to, was to receive or intercept this form in some way between us sending it out and the intended recipient receiving it?
Susan, can you explain what you were trying to say?
So when you do an application, the assets page of the application doesn't come up with every application you do. If you're over 65 or saying that you're disabled. So in the same sense that when the asset page populates in the application, this AVS could also populate in the application. So it doesn't have to be for every application you do. It's just when it meets certain criteria. And then my idea for this paper that's sent out, instead of date of birth, it could say age, because some people do have the same names in the household, but with saying their age, well, you'll know who is expected to sign it.
That's a good idea. Anybody else with their opinion about this? Now's the time to let them know.
And we will bring this back before, making any actual change. So where we're at with this now is I'm working with Deloitte, our partner developer, as well as medical policy to figure out, what's the best way to implement this, because as Susan mentioned, there's only certain times where resource questions even show up. So maybe that's a way to display this. Again, I don't know if I think what we need to look at in that sense is there a time where resource questions would show up and then someone may not need asset verification? That's why the idea was kind of thrown out to me that maybe we base it off of the RFI and then allowing someone to complete that through the online process after that point, if that occurs, so that they wouldn't have to call in to do that or complete the paper form to do that. But yeah, still open-ended conversation with how we're going to get this implemented, and once we have more of a direction on that, we'll bring it back again to the group.
No questions for Andrew? Okay,
So, I don't know if I missed this, but I know that I'm brand new. This is my first meeting, and I'm just curious how this change was decided. I know that there is like a past history of reasoning of why things need to be moved, adjusted, thrown, and adapted. Is there a quick explanation on that part?
That's,
Andrew?
oh, I'll say briefly that, suggestions come in, and I think that actually came from a member. I was gonna look it up really quick. But and then we as a group consider them. Yeah, no, this one came from staff. This suggestion came from a staff person. But then this group considers, but we also, before we make any changes, Andrew, and can again probably speak better to this, but we'll check with the policy teams. We check with our various technical teams to make sure that it's legal and that it's policy team will sign off on it as well. But I don't know, Andrew, anything else to add to that process?
No, that was a good description overall. I would say we don't always need this kind of secondary, check with developer and with policy. This one, we felt there may be a reason that this is being asked to be completed this specific way, and so we've gotten that part cleared up. There isn't a reason that it doesn't exist in the online portal. We just need to find the best way to implement it there. Sometimes the requests that come through are a lot more straightforward in terms of like, is this even possible to be added to the online portal or to be added to our processes? And with those, we'll just get group consensus if this is a change that we feel the group thinks would be beneficial to users. And then we'll, the next process after that is Sam, me, Veronica would submit that as a request to get put into the system by our development team. So hopefully that kind of answers the question.
Yes, it does. That definitely gives it also shows me process of how we go about deciding the changes as well.
Yep. And then I one other thing I'll add that on that request sheet, it can be submitted by a large diverse group of people. But one other normal area that it comes from is we have another work group that's similar to this one called ECIC, which is the worker version of this. So sometimes workers come up with ideas that really actually have a greater impact on the public facing side of our portals. And so we'll kind of take some of that information from them, and that can be presented here as well. So a few different paths that something may come to this meeting as a request proposal.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Yeah, I definitely need to get that request form that I just put in the chat out to a broader audience as well. But all right, so let me get back to our screen, and then we had what we were thinking was a new one, but I don't know, Andrew, you ready to talk about this one?
Yeah, so this I think this one came from Susan, and it was brought up as part of the online application. There's a screen that comes up that asks for annual income, and it asks to confirm what is displayed as the annual income or correct that and give an actual anticipated annual income. And this is for medical programs, and certain medical programs require not just the individual annual income, but the household annual income. So what we were seeing in this situation is over 65. And when getting to the screen, it's only displaying the annual income questions for the household member that's under 65. that alone is normal system behavior because anyone over 65, we don't ask those questions. However, with the particular program BHP, the medical TOA BHP, it does look at household annual income. So the question and concern is, with it not asking that question to the individual who's over 65 years old, are we accurately capturing the total household income? So again, this isn't something that we're asking for a vote on or something that we're even going to propose as a change. We just wanted to address that we're looking into this one because there's part of the screen functionality is functioning as it's designed with not being displayed for anyone over 65, but where there may be a gap in our system here where it should be showing if we're looking at the total household income, or clarifying if that's something that happens on the back end somehow without displaying that. We need to communicate that to our partners because it's clearly confusing to look at eligibility for these programs that consider full household income. So yeah, we put it on here because we thought maybe there was something to bring to this committee, but since our organization meetings last week, or our prep meetings last week, I've been doing more research on this one, and it seems it's either going to be there's some sort of process that is functioning as designed and there's nothing wrong, or that there's a gap in our system and I need to submit it as a defect, which that wouldn't require us submitting a work item. It would just be something that our developer needs to fix. So I know, Susan, I think you're the one who submitted this. I don't know if you have any further questions about it or if anyone else has questions about this.
I would like to add that if I can recall, there needs to be more requests comes in. And if the committee or anybody that wants to put in a request, we really need a lot more requests to work on the rest of this year. So if you have any ideas, any suggestions, any opinions, please let the staff know so they can put these new requests in for us to work on. We really need them.
Unless the system is perfect, then, you know. Yeah, in fact, we'll be talking about some ideas of subsequent meetings coming up later on today as well. I know we have one more item before going to break, but since oddly enough, we're only a few minutes behind, I'm going to propose we go on break now and then we can come back. So how about our 10 minutes? So 12:09. We'll see everyone back.
That's good. 12:09. I'll see everybody back at 12:09. Hey, James.
Oh. Yeah.
Has there been any more added requests that came in lately?
Any more requests for what?
Any more requests that came in, you request lately?
Not since our last meeting that we had last week.
Okay.
I have not went to any meeting.
And we're back.
We're back. Okay. Welcome everybody back.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in and say that we had I really appreciate the longer introductions at the beginning of this meeting, and we have another newish person, if she can introduce herself with our state staff, Maria.
Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon. It's already noon. My name is Maria, and I am one of the lead workers that assist the applicant portal technical support team. And I'm very happy to be here with you guys today and moving forward. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right.
Welcome also, Paul. And Gabriel. Go ahead, James.
All right. So, well, I was about, I was going to share the PowerPoint, but I just realized that, the next thing on our agenda is that iconography sheet with all the charts. So maybe what I should share is that instead, because we've got two goals here. Are, a request, if there's any edits for this sheet, and ask them the committee, are there any or we'll need to finalize how we're going to be sharing it with people if indeed it is finalized, or when it gets finalized. So you've had this, members have had this for what, 3 months now, and Andrew did real spectacular work with it. But are there any suggestions and edits to be made?
So I think the main things I've heard so far is the first 2 pages are, make a lot of sense in terms of the order in which somebody would see something in the system. After that, there's another few pages that are less linear. It's more just, I said the idea was just to get as much on each screen as I could. So one thing I've heard that would be more helpful is, if possible, make this more linear. So when I redesign this, I'm going to go back through the in application and see if there's a way that I can call things out in a more in a way that's more representative of the flow of the application. So that's one main thing I've heard. I have a few suggestions as well about maybe removing, I think it's on the next page, removing, like calling out a hyperlink or something like that.
Maybe
anyway. Yeah, there's a couple suggestions
there it is.
I had gotten from Jay. Yeah, the submit incomplete application hyperlink, I think, was one that we maybe wanted to get out of there, because it's kind of, the function of a hyperlink isn't specific to our website. It's just a general computer function that I think we would assume most people know. And then, I think James and Dion had some internal suggestions for me as well that I'll incorporate. But other than that, I haven't heard a whole lot of feedback about things that would change or see done differently in this, which is totally fine. If people think this is great and awesome, love it. Sounds good. But I think this is kind of the last opportunity that we're asking for any sort of direct feedback or things that we feel like needs to change in this, or that we would like to see change before we move this forward to the next process.
Well, committee members, this is your opportunity. Give them suggestions with this. Susan, Maria, Sydney, India, April, Gabriel, Judith, Vanessa.
Okay, we go ahead with this. Looks good. Feels good. I think it's understandable.
You were kind of muffled a little bit, Judith.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me put my headset back on. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. I say that we go ahead with this because it's clear, concise, and understandable.
So there would be nothing to change on here but what is on here, right?
Right.
I think the actual the information on there is great, but I'm excited to see how it becomes more linear, because that was my question of like, how is someone going to find what they per se be looking for, or what they might have a question on. So
Yeah, I think that is the biggest piece of feedback that I've gotten so far, is if we can make it more representative of a user's experience in like the latter half of this document, that could be more useful.
So what are we talking about? Making it into a what?
So
More usable.
So I think in what I was just referencing is like, so I think a good representation of this, James, if you scroll back a page, or whoever's driving can scroll back a page. So we go from here, if you look at the screenshot, we're at like 9% complete of the application. And I call out some of the things that we can see on this screen. And then we go if you scroll back down to the next slide, we're at 62% complete of the application. So what that means, some of these things that are called out on this screen, they occur earlier on in the application, so that if someone was use this to help them through an application, or to reference as they're going through an application, they may see some of these fields, like the drop down field, or the two different tabs for different members of the household, much earlier in the actual application. And so when I was building this and putting it together, like I said, I was really just trying to get as much on a screen. I was thinking more of like the real estate of the document, like how can we get as much on a screen at once to not make this like a 20-page long document. And that's still my goal. But I do think there's some way that I can go back through and look at trying to get this to a closer representation of the order in which someone would see some of these icons as they go through the application.
I would say maybe on the front page or something, like if there's going to be an introduction to whatever this document is, like to the people, I know what it is, but they might not. Something that says, like how to use control find, like how to search for specific keywords or words that they're interested. I think Andrew is entering into the matrix. But yeah, assuming the average person doesn't necessarily know how to use those, or just accessing literally says find text or tools.
I'm back, and I know Kung Fu now. But yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. Talking about how to search, giving them a tool, or highlighting a tool that can be used to search through the document for keywords or things that they're finding. I just wrote that down because I thought that was a good suggestion.
So would there be a whole intro page? Is that what you're imagining with this? What
I mean, maybe, or just something that says like, just like a cover page, really. It's just like, this is this document, this is what it could be used for. If you're looking for something specific within this document, try looking for using the magnifying glass at the top, or hitting control find on your keyboard.
That's a good idea.
It may be a good idea, but it's a lot of verbiage for a person to work through.
Andrew, I had an idea. Maybe if they were doing this on a website, maybe a little booklet. I don't know or not, but if you go onto a website and you put your mouse digitally to kind of move the pages with your mouse, and have the icons on it, that might work.
Yeah, so I think that is it's kind of like the initial thought we had with this that would be really cool, is to have some sort of online like index or glossary or something that had that available on screen as we were working through the portal. And at least with this initial part of this project or part of what we're working on here, that's beyond a work item, or it's beyond something that we could easily put into the system. That will be something that we look at. I think the cool part about doing this now and getting a kind of framework for this type of guy is sometime in the next year or two, we're going to start working on a CR called AP modernization with the look and feel of the online. So in that project, we'll be able to take kind of the framework of what we've in more as type of like as a type of on-screen or living reference in the portal. So that is definitely something that we want to do and that we're looking at. Probably not going to be able to be implemented in this first sort of part of this rollout of this guide.
Okay, Andrea, I just have to say, this is Judy. I'm a computer dummy. Okay, I'm getting on to that 80 year. And I'm looking at this page and I can figure it out. What is there to improve on? I really like this page. I can figure it out.
That's great feedback. And so, yeah, I think, like I said, not hearing a ton of things that we really need to change other than maybe moving a couple things around in the later part of the document. So, yeah, I think largely we're going to be moving forward with what this is after I do a little bit of reorganizing and seeing what I can do there. And then I think that leads to the next part of this conversation is, so our first approach is going to be getting this made as an official form, which it has to go through a process with our communications team, and it'll get translated into at least Spanish, because we have the applicant portal in Spanish, which will mean that the online portal in Spanish, which means I need to go through and get these screenshots all in our Spanish version of the portal. And then through being an official form, it may be available in other languages as well, although it'll be, I don't know, it'll be less applicable because the portal itself is only currently available in English or Spanish. But that's the next step, is getting this made into an official form. And then what we can do, official form, which would hopefully be a couple of months from now, depending on how Ham's process takes, is what we want to do with that. I think some things we've talked about is putting a link either on this screen that we're looking at or on the next screen, the dashboard screen, making a link available there to pull this up, saying like, hey, if you're wondering about what some of this stuff on the screen means, go ahead and click this for, a walkthrough or a guide on some of the iconography in this system. I think another option has been on the resource website that James has shared. Things like that. But the first step is going to be getting this made into an official form.
Thank you.
Andrew, I got another idea. When you go,
yeah, what's up, George?
When you go into the website and you go in search engine and it says American, and in that it's got all kinds of languages. If you go into American on the website and you can change it from American to a certain type of language, it should change these words over to their language.
You mean James, can you scroll up real quick?
Yep.
Like if you're going to a website and you're going into search with a different type of language in the search engine, like American,
so you mean
Spanish,
English?
yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Well, if it's and you want to go to Spanish, you got a whole list of different languages to select from. If you go in there and select a certain language, then all this wording would automatically turn.
I think that's hard because those automatic, whether it's Google or Bing or whatever it may be, are not always accurate. And two, you're going to ask an external, you're putting that external, we don't know how accurate that's going to be. And you're putting that on another agency when about safety and data breaches. I myself am not going to switch to another language and then put in my social, my yeah, whatever it may be. So I think that burden should still remain, that just for equity purposes within one.
Mhm.
Okay.
And yeah, so that, just to speak to kind of what Vanessa said, that, you know, we have run into issues with people using tools like that, either browser extensions or native browser tools that exist within those browsers um, to do that kind of live translation on the user end. And we've gotten feedback saying like, hey, your website isn't translating this correctly. And it's like, well, it's because it's not meant to be used with that, and those aren't approved translations. So we do run into that issue where even though that functionality exists out there, because I think often the very hyper specific terminology that we use that's specific to certain programs and things like that doesn't always translate as directly as an automated translation would work. So that's why when we do add our translations in the system that are run through, you know, the process of different translators and different analysts to make sure that we're translating things in a way that makes sense, you know, culturally and based specifically on the topics that we're covering. So not a terrible idea, but the actual application of that, it hasn't been successful when we've seen that used.
Okay, so the first idea I given you with the mouse where it turns the pages, how would you put that on a porthole on a phone when you're doing the application?
That's a good question. That's something that, you know, the benefit of being on this side of things that we're doing is we get to come up with cool ideas, and then we give that to our developer, and they're the ones who have to figure out all that technical stuff. So when we get to that point, if we feel like that's something we want to do, like how do we get this working on the mobile device, we just say that's what we want, and then we get some feedback from our developers on how exactly they might be able to make that happen.
Who are these developers?
A company called Deloitte.
I think they should come to one of our meetings.
I don't know if we want that.
I guess not. I have met them before, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of great people that work for Deloitte, and we have a good partnership with them. But I think, especially for this, it's good, and then letting them do their work.
Okay.
So I work with Deloitte too, with the translations, notices, what have you, and I'm just curious if there's the opportunity or option to have just like one form for all the different languages, but the form is virtual or in person, and Deloitte has provided those translations, and then the individual can click into that form on the homepage if they need more clarification within their language on like the directions of this page, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, and I believe in making it. That's part of making it an official form is we would, you know, hopefully have it translated as much as possible. I think again where that gets a little tricky is that we only have the actual portal in English or Spanish, and so I definitely could see a scenario where that help, where someone understands English or Spanish well enough to navigate the portal, but maybe some of those more in-depth explanations are better understood in their language. So I think it's a good idea. I just think, yeah, I think the first step is getting this made into an official form, which when we do that, it would be, you know, available digitally or something that could be printed off in paper form.
Yep, because to my knowledge, it looks like Deloitte does a good job with translating all those, you know, different languages. So then the home page could have, you know, one word in that language that they identify, and then they can click into that form and they could see it all translated accordingly.
Andrew, with the idea, have you guys thought of the disability aspect of it? Like if someone wants it to be in bold print where they can see it from like small to big lettering?
Yeah, we haven't talked about it specifically, but our forms generally do have a large print option. And we do have, for any notice or correspondence in our system, we have options for, assistive communication needs like Braille or audio recording, things like that. So I don't know, again, until we have this like fully available as an official form, I'm not sure I don't want to promise every single way that it will be available, but we have a precedent for that in our system of making things available in those ways.
How would you approach the person that's blind in order to fill out this form? Like a hearing thing?
Audio tape.
Yeah, and well, so there's a thing called screen readers that's like assistive technology. So like one that would be used on a computer and a common one is called JAWS. But I know that if they were using a mobile device, that like Android have their own screen readers built in. And when we're testing things in the system, we're always testing to make sure that it works within those assistive tools. So again, I would say if somebody has the technology and the ability to use those tools, that they would be able to complete it on their own. But maybe relying on community partners as well is how someone would complete this information.
So are you wanting us to vote on this, right, Andrew?
I mean, I think we've already in previous meetings established that this is something that the general, the overarching idea here of providing a form or a guide is something that we all have already agreed on, and we've already put a lot of work into it. I think really what we were looking for is one final chance to provide any feedback before I, make some of these organizational updates I was talking about with trying to streamline it a little bit better, and then sending it through to that process to be made as an official form.
Gabriel, how do you feel about this?
Did you mean Gabrielle?
Yeah.
I think we're missing Gabrielle at the moment.
She might be away from the desk.
Calling somebody else.
Maria, what do you think about this? Maria Park or Maria Gonzalez?
I put my feedback in the chat, George. I think just like we've been talking about updating to make it a little more linear, and it looks great. It's like almost perfect.
Almost perfect. I like that. Because nothing's perfect.
So James, is Paul and Ariana, are they on your team?
Well, I can let them speak for themselves, but Adriana is, they're adjacent teams. They're helping us out.
Okay, and is Paul another one?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out the new people, what departments are in. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we don't need to. I don't know how much we need to stretch this. If folks don't have any more feedback, I think we're good. Like I have an understanding of where everyone's at with it so far, and I think the first step before we really make any further decisions needs to be getting this submitted to be made as a form, and then once we have that, we can bring back any sort of related work items about how to get this in the system and vote on those. So I really think, unless anyone has anything else, I don't think we need to call on everybody, but if anyone has anything to share, please feel free. If not, I think we're ready to move on.
So then, with the discussions we've had, so on and so forth, and this being the ending month for this, it seems to me that it's been okayed. Remember if I'm reading that right.
That's where I'm at too, George. I think we're good to go.
All right, then it's ready to go, Andrew.
Cool. So yeah, that we'll bring this back, like I said, once we've got it submitted and made it into a form, and we'll talk about specifically approving work items to get this available, or what we need to do, if anything, to make this more available to folks.
Okay. Now, what was that thing, James, that was going to come out before the break? There was one more thing before the break.
Oh, that was it. That was the iconography form was the thing.
Okay.
Fur things off. This is a fun thing.
All right. Well, thank you, Judith. We have one more slide in our agenda. And while I'm, let's see, I'll bring that up. And it's a big, long list of vague topics here. First one you can see is we're at 12 people in this committee. So I think we're missing at least one person I can think of. But so I'm, and so now we have Gabrielle, which is wonderful. I'm glad she was able to join and jump in. And I'm just want to, if you have suggestions for people, this has always been a little bit informal of how we bring people in, but if there's someone that you've worked with or someone, particularly a benefit recipient, we'd love to get people who want to improve the system in this committee as well. I think we're at a pretty good number, but I think we'd be better with a couple more people. So that's just my vague request to you. If you don't have anyone in mind, that's fine. But if you do, that would be good. I think we could use some more SNAP focused people, for instance. We don't have a lot of representation in that. So so that's just my comment. Okay, Susan, I see your comment as well. And let me do one more thing, and then we could, Susan, we go to your comments. One is that we referenced this earlier, where the self-scheduling change request is a year away, which means there's a lot of work to do beforehand. And one of those things is getting a lot of smart people in a room to talk about what exactly, what's the nitty gritty and how these changes are going to look. And these meetings will probably start, well, hopefully start in May. And typically what goes on is meetings will last for 2 hours and they're twice a week. And this may go on, how long? What, 2, 3, 4 weeks, something like that. So I just want to ask if there are people who are interested in that. I will say with the warning that it is pretty technical, but we really would love, a couple people to give some input on this who have experience with on the technical side of the system. So Andrew, you want to add some things I'm forgetting?
No, that's you set the table well. Yeah, I guess just to give like a more big picture thing is, with these change requests, the process is we have this series of meetings, as James mentioned, and we meet with our developer directly. So Deloitte, who we were talking about in the previous conversation, a group of us from the state side, business analysts, policy analysts, meet with the developers, and we all work together through a series of meetings to determine the specifics about these changes that are going in, to make sure that from the Deloitte side, to make sure that they're understanding what the state is asking, that it's meeting the requirements and the needs that we're looking for with this change, and then from the state side to make sure, for Deloitte, to make sure that these changes can function within the framework of our system. So like James said, all very technical, but it's a good opportunity for folks from this group who might be interested to kind of help champion this idea. And since this is something that came from this group, we really wanted to offer the opportunity for people from this group to be involved in that process. And it is a big time commitment, as James mentioned, and we'll know more about the specific time requirement for each of these meetings as we get what's called the level of effort back. So Deloitte has to go through a process of determining just how long it's going to take them to develop this. And through that process, we'll know exactly the hours commitment that we would be looking for. But yeah, really, if people are interested in helping champion this process and giving input on from the perspective of a partner or from a community member on what we feel would be the best implementation of this change, that's really what this opportunity.
James, I would like to suggest also, with the people that's under this group, you might want to also check in with Joseph and see if the DSACs around the state might want to get involved.
Yeah, that's a yeah, that is an interesting suggestion, and we can take a look at that, certainly. Yeah, I'll have to think about that. Maybe we'll touch base with Joseph about that idea. I mean, I think Andrew made fun of me before for mixing my metaphors, but this is this is the opportunity to look under the hood and see how the sausage is made. So, it's, if you've been curious about how these things happen, this is really the nuts and bolts of it right here. So, you can tell your kids all about it.
So Andrew, can you give us a little bit more of another perspective that we may be looking at if we were to join?
Yeah, I got it. So like the normal flow of one of these meetings would be so I'm going to be the lead on this CR from the BA perspective. There's another person from Deloitte who leads on their side. And usually after getting the meetings, Deloitte runs us through a presentation of like a certain part of the change, and we'll look at any changes to what the screens on the portal, any changes to how the system works. So really what this one is looking at is probably how to incorporate some ideas around existing like when I think of it, I think of when I'm scheduling an appointment with my dentist or the doctor, I can go online and choose a time that works for me, select what the appointment, if I'm like doing a follow-up, if it's a new appointment, if it's like an annual visit, things like that. So we would be considering existing things that work in our lives and things that work in other systems that we're aware of, and how we would want to implement something like that into our online portal, and what we want to allow, what we want to restrict. I could go even deeper, but that's really going to be the basis of what we're doing here, is trying to take this idea of being able to give some agency over to online portal users and how they schedule their own appointments and manage their own appointments from the online portal and from the mobile app.
Okay, and James, I'd like to make another suggestion if we may,
Mhm.
about getting with the Oregon Health and Human Service to their state offices and see if the case managers could represent this idea to their clients also around the state to get more people involved. That way you might have a mixture of more people, not just with us, but even a whole, you may just get a group of more people than.
Yeah, that's an That is an interesting idea. I think something we should explore. I don't know about this particular request, if I think we're hoping for someone who works with people on a regular basis, not an individual person with one case. In terms of recruitment for the committee, I could see that. But for this this volunteer opportunity, we might check with the regional outreach coordinators too for CPOP. All right.
So who's ever interested, send emails to James about this idea. Yeah.
It'll be great.
Yep, and for those interested, if the hours commitment is an issue, we'll be able to share more details about the exact specifics soon. And there may be ways for us to kind of work around, our agenda for each meeting. Like maybe we can make sure that we cover all of the extra technical behind the scenes sort of meat of it all in some of the first couple meetings, and then make sure we get your input in a couple specific meetings that work for you. So I think the first thing we're asking for is anyone who might be in this, and we'll kind of work with you to make sure we can make it work.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mentioned all those meetings. Not every one of them is going to be about what it looks for the external person. So, the user. So, all right. Think about that. Susan, you said you had a couple things.
Yeah, so I'm also part of the CP and OHP systems work group. And we meet monthly as well. And we also meet with the group of OHP workers who are dedicated to the community partner work group. And they were bringing up in our last meeting about how people are having multiple cases opened for different programs. And they had asked us if we are able to attach ourselves to old cases. And we can, as community partners, we can go to their old case that might be closed. But when we apply for benefits through that old case, a whole new case is created. So they're saying we don't want multiple cases, but there's no other way of us opening old cases and applying for benefits through the old closed cases. So their suggestion is if somebody had benefits before and their case is closed, call OHP with them, which is kind of negating the purpose of a community partner to have somebody come in with us or call us so that we can call OHP to have them apply. Sometimes it takes more than 30-40 minutes to get through. So I'm not sure if this is something that might be for the future of when we go through the renovation. But being able to open a closed case as a community partner or even a member, so if a member reapplies, they also get a new case number. So being able to open an old closed case would like that there wouldn't be multiple cases, at least, well, not on purpose. So I was just wondering why when we reapply through an old case, it creates a new case. It would be nice to be able to open the old case and make updates to that.
Yeah, that has to do with their current system logic, like that. It's happening intentionally. I don't have a lot of history at the moment about like why we do it that way, but after a certain time period, it does that you were talking about, just opens a brand new case. I could try and find out more about it. If it's something we can change, we might bring it back here to talk about. I have a feeling there's a reason we do it that way, and I need to do some work to understand more. If Sam was here, she could probably tell you, but unfortunately, we don't have Sam today. But yeah, if it is something we can change in the future, I think we'd be interested in that too.
I mean, I think that's a great question because I've seen, especially when it comes to ER, if you are already on it, the exit limit's 250, and I've seen multiple times where there's misunderstanding with eligibility workers and cases are closed, and almost reopening cases dang near impossible. And then if they tell them to reapply, but then the person is between that 200 and 250, where if the mistake wasn't made, they would
So to wrap up that last piece, I will find out some more information. I'll look specifically into, what community partners may be seeing on the medical side, and then also some of those scenarios relating to ERDC that Vanessa shared. Susan, did you have another topic you wanted to share, or was that it?
It was for the AP Tech people on the meeting. I think I had been talking to Paul about how I'm no longer able to access the administrator panel on the CP portal. I've never gotten a ticket number or an answer back as to why I'm not able to. So the administrator panel would be a way for us to switch community partners within within our group. And every time I go there and put a person's name in, it just comes up with an error. So they asked me to ask the CP business team if I have the permissions, and they said there should be no problem with permissions. I had mentioned it to Samantha, and she said, well, yeah, if you are able to go to the page, you have the permissions to do it. So I'm just wondering why it is all of a sudden broken. I'm thinking maybe since on the eligibility pages, our CP names used to be listed on their eligibility letters, but now it's our organization. So I don't know if that had something to do with having the process broken.
Yeah, so one part of that is that Sam's correct. If you can get to that screen, it's probably not a role issue because all CPs should have the admin role. Paul or Maria, is this like a recurring thing you've heard from other community partners, or is this new to y'all?
No, this was something that Susan and I were working on, and I hadn't heard back. We hadn't touched base about if she had continued seeing those errors and not being able to switch community partners. When I brought it up to other staff and so forth, they said it sounds like a restriction on Susan's side, not allowing her to switch community partners throughout.
Okay, it sounds like maybe Susan's still having the issue. So, Paul, can you or Maria, one of you, follow up with Susan offline, make sure we are capturing exactly what's going on with that, and then if not already, get a CA ticket filed?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Andrew?
George?
I might come up with a solution with that. Couldn't a security code, once a program acknowledged someone trying to get in, that's already had information put in already, could the program send out a code to say like Inja or Maria or somebody, and they'll have to put a code in to go into the most recent application instead of having to fill out another one? I mean,
It's for the first question. Yeah, there may be some ways around it. the base of what's happening there is based on how our system's designed. After a certain number of days of a case being closed, it's designed to create a new case. So, like I said, I need to do more on my end to understand why we have that decision and that function in our system. I assume there's a reason. I don't know the reason, but yeah, I got to do a little bit of homework on that before we continue that conversation. But I think we are at the end of the meeting, so I don't want to. I want to be respectful of people's time, and that'll be something we bring back after I've done some homework.
Yeah, and I'll just say too, I know people are gonna have to get going. Yeah, too many multiple cases. That's, that segues to the only other thing I really wanted us to talk about, which we're not gonna have time, but at least think about is what do we want to see in future meetings? We're not getting as many suggestions now. So one idea was we can talk about this, we can talk about whatever would improve the applicant experience in one. One idea was to have one of our community partner assisters walk through an application from their perspective, so we can all see how it looks from their end, and maybe that'll generate some ideas. And also get Paul and Maria and Mandy and whoever else to also have some time to talk about what they're hearing when partners are calling on, or whoever, calling with difficulties. And what do they see? So those are some ideas. I guess we'll be tackling those at a future meeting. Anything else?
Yes, before we depart, would like to tell everybody that after this meeting, I will be going into another meeting. The Oregon Health and Human Service is wanting me to make a video for them. And I'll find out later here at 2:30 on how they want me to design it or how they want to design it. Once that all's put together, I will ask their permission to share it with you if you're interested. And this is for the Oregon Health and Human Service Department. With this being said, is there anything else we need to do more on the agenda? Okay, you all be safe and so on and so forth, and I will see you at the next meeting in April. Have a good day. Meeting adjourned.